Velkommen til Karriereklubben, en podcast, der hjælper dig med dine personlige udfordringer i karrieren. Mit navn er Rossmeisl, og jeg er dagens vært. And today we have received some dilemmas about well-being, of course, and we have received them from students. And to solve them, here is the panel. Give them a round of applause. Welcome to the three of you. I think we should start with you presenting yourself to the audience, but also our listeners, as this will be an episode that we will also record so you can listen to it afterwards. Maybe we can start with you.
Yeah. My name is Cecilie. I'm the Director of Economy and Governance in the Ministry of Interior and Health. So normally, right now, we are negotiating a large reform of the healthcare system, which takes up a lot of time. And the reason I'm here today mainly is because I got to know Pernille at a course I was hosting. I think this theme about well-being and what actually motivates students and all the dilemmas you come to think about is really interesting. So I'm really looking forward to it.
Amazing. Welcome to the panel. And Benjamin, you should also present yourself.
Yeah, thank you. We have a somewhat similar background in terms of the government sector. So I'm in the Digitaliseringsstyrelsen, it's called in Danish, an agency for digital government. Working with a digital academy, trying to teach government officials how to navigate the digital landscape that we also need to build our future society. Besides that, I'm an external lecturer here at CBS, trying to give back what I have learned from my good years here at the institution. And this topic is very close to my heart, both from own experience with well-being and the opposite of it, but also from research collaboration I'm doing with Pernille right now. So thank you for having me.
Amazing. And André, you should also present yourself to our audience.
Thank you so much. So my name is André. I work in Danske Bank day to day, where I work with equities. So I'm trying to figure out which stocks to buy and sell. So nothing related to the public sector. And that's what I do 24 hours almost. I'm getting incoming calls as we speak. But it's not that bad. When I'm not here, when I'm not in Danske Bank, I'm here. I am also an external lecturer at CBS, where I lecture financial statement analysis, so how to value a company, which I also do day to day. So it's good to be back at CBS.
A super diverse panel, even though you're all alumni, so that's amazing to see. I think we should just get started and start with the first dilemma. Are you ready?
Yes.
Here it goes. Dear Karriereklubben, I have just finished my master at CBS and I'm having my first job interview next week. Okay, that's soon. I have social anxiety, and during my time at CBS, I have often experienced that my anxiety was a problem when I was working in groups or when I should do a presentation for others. If I tell my new workplace about my anxiety, I'm unsure whether it has the implications that I will not get the job. I have done well in general at my studies, so I think I can handle a job well. I don't know whether I should be open about it in the interview. And if I get the job, how can I best articulate my needs and requests to my colleagues? And should I even do it? And how to start the conversation with colleagues in a good way without becoming a victim. From Louise. So there's some things in this dilemma. Social anxiety, should she be open about it? How can she best articulate her needs and requests to her colleagues? Should we start with you, Benjamin, perhaps?
Gladly.
Yeah?
I think it's a very interesting dilemma. Also because with our extrovert performance society that we have today, I think many people, without being necessarily diagnosed with social anxiety, also potentially being really introvert, find it difficult to come to a very social work environment. Mm-hmm. In terms of her dilemma, should she say this or not? It kind of depends on the context. I mean, how relevant or how big of a disadvantage would it be in the work context she's going into? But I would say, I mean, if this was my friend, probably don't say it as the first thing.
Don't say it.
Yeah, if because you don't want that to identify you. So like, I know it's difficult to compare invisible disabilities with visible, but let's say if you didn't have a finger, why would you bring that up in a job interview where you actually didn't need to work with your hands, to put it like on edge?
Yeah.
And then when you get into the job, if you find a safe space with some close colleagues, a confidential space, then potentially bring it about and let them in, and let them help you navigate in this environment.
But that makes me curious, Benjamin. Have you ever had something that you wanted to tell your colleagues, but you feel like it was positioning your best by not saying it?
I think so, yeah. So I see what you mean by being tactical about how you present yourself. And that's why I think that she should find some colleagues that she can feel comfortable around. And then the way she want to position herself internally in the organization, in front of the managers and so, she can do that and paint the picture that she wants without being branded by having some disability, which is, I think, today more and more normal. But also people have different associations with it.
Yeah. Okay, interesting perspective. What do you think, André?
So I think you could also generalize this problem, right? Should you talk about your weaknesses? I mean, that's the general problem, no matter what it is. And I think personally, I don't, as the first thing, talk about my weaknesses, right? Because I think I'm characterized more by my strength than weaknesses, hopefully. But of course, it's important to be open about it. But as you also said, it shouldn't be what characterizes you. It shouldn't be what people remember, that you have this or that weaknesses. We all have some different weaknesses. So I think that's the general problem. I would also, and I'd like to know, I mean, how serious is the social anxiety issue? Is it like you cannot even talk to people? You wrote a dilemma, so I guess there is some openness about it, right? But how serious are we talking? Because I think it's a scale where you can be really introverted and not be able to talk to people, and you can have bad feelings in the stomach when you are out in public and so on. I guess there are different variants. I don't struggle with it, so I don't really know.
Don't have any weaknesses?
Yes, but not in terms of social anxiety. Or I mean, I'm standing here, right? And I think it's okay. So I think that's also important. So concretely to the dilemma, should she say it in an interview? I probably wouldn't. But then again, when you start in the job, then be forward-looking, right? Let's try to figure out how can we improve things, because again, we all have weaknesses. So how can she become better? How can she work with her issue of having social anxiety? That's what I would do. So not say it in the beginning, unless, I mean, if it's a job where you are supposed to be on a stage every day, then of course. But why would you apply for a job like that? I guess it's not. I guess it's not interesting. So. Again, don't say it in the interview, and then take it up with your boss when you start up and say, I don't have the weakness. I do have this weakness, but probably not as the first thing, right? I mean, and then again, I guess almost everyone, if not everyone, also have some kind of fake it till you make it approach, right? Out there. At least that I have heard from many leaders out there. They're all like, oh, when will I get discovered? Because I don't really know what I'm doing. And I think that's the case for many, right? So don't be too open about it necessarily.
Okay, interesting.
Good point.
Yeah. What about you, Cecilie?
Yes,
what do you think?
I think it's a really good dilemma, because one of the questions I always ask people when hiring is if you could point out a weakness about yourself, what would it be? And honestly, it doesn't really matter what people respond, but it's the fact that they've thought about it. If when I ask them the question, if that's the first time they've ever been asked the question, what is your weakness? that for me is a sign of not being really reflected about who you are in a workplace. So if you say, and for example, in her case, my advice would be you don't have to tell people that you have social anxiety, but I would definitely tell the employer, in order for me to be a good employee at this workplace, these are the requirements I need. If you want the best out of me as an employee, it would be preferable for me not to be, as you say, not to be on a stage on day one, but I would probably like to be on stage perhaps in a couple of years, or these are the skills I would like to train at this workspace. So not directly, but definitely have the reflection about how does this weakness, how do I compensate or how do I address that in this type of job?
And it's not a good answer to say I have no weaknesses at
That
all.
is not a good answer.
That's my weakness.
That's a very worrying answer.
Also, I think actually that's important, right? Because in that case, it could actually be a strength to have a weakness, because the problem is people come in and say, no, I don't really know what my weakness is, and etc. Right?
Yeah.
But it should be. I mean, it should be when you're confronted, right? So do you have weaknesses? Yes, I actually have this.
Yeah.
It's not like, hello, I'm André, I have social anxiety.
No, exactly.
That's you don't do that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe also, at least from my perspective, I often find that when I talk about my weaknesses, all of a sudden others get more comfortable sharing theirs as well. So maybe it could also be a strength.
Yeah, definitely. But I think, I mean, we all know, I used to, when I have like these yearly reviews with my leaders today, the first time I have it with them, I always draw them this like small boat where you have this, like the lower part of the boat is where your weaknesses are, and you can camouflage them, but you can't really make them go away. So your job is really to make it work anyway. The boat has to sail, so you just have to patch it up the best you can, but you have them. But even though the boat, if it is sailing, it means that the parts that are above the water, your strength, they outmatch them. And that's really important thing for me. Your strengths are stronger than your weaknesses, and that's the balance you have to hit. But everyone has weaknesses. I have weaknesses as well. So the people I lead will probably also point different things with me that they would wish would be better. And I know I have weaknesses as well. So it's more the reflection about how does this affect me, and what do I need from a leader or an employer in order to compensate. I think that's the answer you want to hear when you.
And it's actually really interesting, I think, that because I was in an interview once, and he asked me to say 10 weaknesses and 10 strengths. Like 10? Can we do 3? It's serious. And it was a quite senior person, and it was difficult to say both 10 strengths and 10 weaknesses, right? So I had to come up with something like, I think I'm a fairly good brother, and you get to that point, it's really, really difficult. So it would actually be easier to do that exercise if you were really self-aware, right?
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we have some good advices for Louise, and thanks for sharing, André. That sounds like a horrible experience. But Louise, I mean, from the panel, some of the advice you get here is that you should say it, but not as the first thing. So that should not be the thing defining you, that you have social anxiety or that you have weaknesses. We all have different weaknesses. So it should definitely be something that we are more open about, and I think we also struggle with that in our modern society. So definitely be open, but it's not something you should say in your first job interview. Cecilie also says that it's something she uses in her job interviews with the potential new employees. That is actually to ask about weaknesses and strengths. So maybe you'll be able to just tell a bit about it, say you're not the type of person that will go up on stage as the first from day one, maybe. And then maybe also find a safe spot that Benjamin says, find some people that you trust, that you're confident with, that will be able to give you good advice and also help you navigating in this, though you have social anxiety. Thank you so much for your dilemma. Yeah, we love our jingle. I can't help dancing when it comes on. Thank you for all the answers here. Are you ready for the next dilemma?
Yes.
Are you ready? Yes. Okay, here it goes. Dear Karriereklubben, I have a study-relevant job in a small company where there is a great deal of individual responsibility. I feel a strong sense of responsibility for my tasks and a strive to complete them to perfection. I often feel that if I don't do everything flawlessly, things will fall apart and it will be my fault. At the same time, I notice that some of my team members don't seem to take as much responsibility for their tasks, and honestly, I sometimes feel like they lack seriousness. As a result, I end up working even harder and put in more long hours than the average student job. How can I navigate this to overcompensate by working faster and harder, which only leads to increasingly high expectations for myself to be the one carrying the shared load of the company's goals? Some people might say, take a break, it will all be fine. But for me, it often feels like everything will fall apart if I don't do it. So I cannot just take a break. As a young and unexperienced employee, I also feel like I have to prove my worth. So, what should I do? From Rikke. Yeah.
Everything will not fall apart.
Everything will not fall apart for Rikke? No?
No,
Okay.
I mean, many people think that if they're not in the company, then the company will fall apart, but of course not. I mean, there are many employees out there, and I mean, of course, somebody is more critical, but especially if you're a student worker, of course, you can be replaced. So that I think that's a good way of thinking. You can be a really good student worker, right? But it's a good way of thinking because then you don't feel as big a responsibility, right? I think I thought that myself when I was working in Maersk while I was a student, and I was doing this really important internal audit thing, and I think that many people were happy if I didn't do it because internal audit is not the funniest thing for employees to have running around. So many people are important, but the company can usually do well also without some people. Everyone is replaceable. I think that's a good rule.
So she should remind herself of that the company will not fall apart.
Yes.
Everything will not fall apart.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of
Okay.
course.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way of thinking, right? And the second thing, also interesting, I think she mentioned, is she have a lot of responsibility, right? It's a small company, which is really good. She have potential of really developing and also doing big tasks in the company. But I think the pain point really here is the perfectionist part, which can be really a strength, but it can also be really annoying, especially if you are counterpart to that perfectionist. And it sounds like when she writes it that somebody is delivering something to her, and then she's like, it's not good enough for my standard, so I need to correct it and be a pain in the ass for that person. Hey, please do this better and better. And that can be really, really annoying, right?
Yeah.
Super annoying. Yeah. So I think she needs to focus on her own plate and say, as long as I deliver what I deliver as being good enough, then I cannot do other people's work, right? Then I have to take in what they deliver, and as long as it's good enough for a minimal viable product or whatever, then we can do fine, right? I mean, it's not like the company is falling apart if whatever the formatting is not pretty enough or whatever. What first thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Benjamin, you also had a reflection as André talked about
the reflection was that when I was a student assistant, I had a farewell reception when I left the job, invited everyone. Practically no one came. So I realized...
No one came?
No, but only like a handful.
Okay.
So I realized, okay, maybe I exaggerated my own role and value in this company. So that's one part. The other thing is, I think with this dilemma, the focal person here has an admirable sense of responsibility, which is a dream employee for most employers. But it's a blessing and a curse because it can also be what cracks her in the long run. She's taken on too much responsibility, more than the job requires. There's also the possibility, the risk of her being an overachiever.
Yeah.
In this context, she says that she lacks seriousness from the others. They might think the opposite of her. Maybe she should tone it down and stick to what is actually the responsibility of her role. Or she should find a more ambitious community to be within. And community, I think, relates to some of the good points made from the former students before. This all seems like a very individualistic mission that she's on. So maybe take more into account what kind of community is she in, and is this really the role that they need?
Yeah. But what about this perfectionism? That's also something we haven't touched upon. You will do that, Cecilie.
Yeah, because I think exactly that dilemma. I think a lot of employees within the ministry would definitely relate to. You feel you're solving an important task.
Yeah.
You feel like a lot of people depend on the work that you do specifically this day. And when I have employees who have a great sense of responsibility, they're the employees you want because you know they will always complete the task and you know that they will feel obligated to make sure it ends well. But they also need to learn when their responsibility stops, and they also need to learn when to address the responsibility with their leader. I think something that a lot of people forget is the fact that they're part of a hierarchy. And besides being annoying sometimes, a hierarchy also helps with sharing the responsibility. Where your responsibility stops, someone else's responsibility starts, and you can't really solve the entire problem, but you can do your part. And if you do your part well, someone else has to do their part well, and so on. So addressing the fact that when you're part of an organization, the advantage of that is that you play one part, but not the entire part. And that is really a maturing process, because if you feel this way when you're a student worker, imagine how you'll feel when you actually have responsibility for 100 people.
Yeah.
If you don't learn to manage your own expectations and also acknowledge the fact that there's so much you can do, but there's also a lot you can't take responsibility for, then it's going to be a long road ahead.
But there might also be something about, now this is also the first study-relevant job, and at least I think a lot maybe you can also recognize the feeling of when you're in your first job, you really want to make a good impression, and you think that this is like the first stepping stone to that exciting career you have ahead. So it's really important you do everything right. And at least for me, myself, I worked super hard when I was, in a study-relevant job, because that was where I could really show some of my skills I have learned in school. Now, not so much. I think that something changes when you have a full-time job, because suddenly that becomes your everyday life. So how can she deal with that? Because I also think there is some learnings about not being a perfectionist. That's not what you want in work life. Yeah, Benjamin?
Well, I think that this competence or expectation discrepancy, also addressed earlier, it really comes into play here.
Yeah.
Because you come out, you want to prove your worth, you want to show that you're worthy of being invited into the strategic room of the leadership and all this, whereas you find that you're just a common employee, having day-to-day operational tasks, so and so. So one thing is to respect that, okay, I'm in a new reality here. I need to find my feet, my own role, adjust my expectations. Whatever expectations I had from CBS, this institution is lovely, but with all due respect to the senior management here, it's also a tribe and it's a bubble where you foster these collective narratives, I would say toxic narratives, about what success means. So you come out, that's also where the grades come into play, with this quite unpragmatic, unhealthy perfectionism, where you want to kick ass to a point with every task where you'll be rewarded a 12. And as was also pointed out, that's not possible.
Yeah, exactly.
And one thing is you'll be a pain in the ass for your co-workers, potentially, but also eventually you won't manage it.
Yeah, and you will also learn it is a skill not to be a perfectionist, because
exactly.
you need things to be done and not done 100%, but maybe just 80 or 90%.
Yeah. And having like I think a lot of employees with us, if they want to be a leader at some point, I think the biggest hurdle is going from other people telling you when you've completed your task, when are you a success, when have you done well enough, and going over to an arena where you're the one who's setting the limit, when is it good enough. And you also have to do that with yourself. You have to, I think if you ask my leader or the minister we have currently, she will definitely tell you that she doesn't think everything we do is good enough. But if you have to if you're able to be in that pressure in the long run, you have to know with yourself, when do I think I've done it good enough? And having that inner compass or inner success measurement, when have I done my task well enough? That is a development process for the rest of your life. Always adjusting. Now I have this job instead of that job. When am I a success here? When have I done well enough? Because if you have that, then you become more immune to failures and things not turning out the way you want. And especially if you're a leader someday and you're setting the standard to others, it becomes more and more important to know when is enough.
If I can just touch upon that.
That will be a last comment, Benjamin, because we also have a last dilemma we need to go through.
Okay, so knowing your own limits and boundaries, setting those as you go along, you won't be able to do it to begin with. But that's one of the key components, I think, to having a good and long and healthy career and work life.
Yeah, amazing. Well, Rikke, I think there is some good advices for you here. Well, first of all, you are a dream employee because you are taking responsibility, you're doing the job, you really put in the hours. First of all, that's really, that's really nice, and it's good that you're doing it. So first of all, round of applause for Rikke for doing that. You can give a round of applause. We have some more advice for Rikke, so let's just catch up on the last ones here. Then you maybe be an overachiever sometimes. That you're struggling too much with being perfect, and perfectionism is actually not what we want in work life always. Sometimes it's better to find out when is enough, like Cecilie says, and also setting the limits for yourself, because otherwise you will also burn out in it or be a pain in the ass, as André says, for your co-workers. Well, let's continue to the final dilemma. Are you ready for that?
Yes.
Here it is. Dear Karriereklubben, I'm a fifth semester student, and I find it challenging to balance the time spent on studies versus my student job. There's also difference in the types of job to consider. Should I prioritize my study life and well-being and choose a job at a workplace I know is safe, supportive, and manageable, even if it isn't very prestigious or looks impressive on a CV? Or should I gain experience from the right places with a so-called steep learning curve where it can be hard to keep up, but the experience is more valuable for my future career? I guess my question is, how do I find a balance between the pressure to maintain good grades, to get into my dream master's program, and at the same time have energy to dedicate to my student job, which is also important for my future? From Mia. Yeah.
So really classic dilemma, right?
It's a really classic dilemma, actually. Yeah, should she spend time on her studies or her student job? That's one we get a lot in Karriereklubben. Yeah.
I don't think it's either or. I think you can do both. Of course, it depends on your bandwidth, but I won't set it up like you can only be a 12th grade student or you can only be a super employee. I think you can do both because, and that's experience for myself, you also learn on the job, you also apply your skills on the job, and you also apply what you learn on the job in your studies, right? So there is a continuous learning from both angles that I think is really important to keep in mind. My personal experience with this was that I studied really hard and I loved to study, but I also worked really hard and I loved to work, and I wouldn't be able to study 100% and I wouldn't be able to work 100%, and I still don't do because I'm still here at CBS, right? Because I need a variety in my professional life. I need to both work and learn, right? And of course you also learn on the job, but I need to do both things, and it depends on the person. But I don't think you should paint it that black and white. I don't think you should say it's either or. I think find an ambitious job. I mean, of course, do that, but also be ambitious in school. I don't think it's too much to demand of yourself. In general, at least it wouldn't be for myself.
Cecilie, what do you think? You're nodding a lot to what André says.
Because I definitely, I don't think it's an either or. I think it's, I mean, first of all, you need to determine with yourself what is most important to you. If it's extremely important to you to keep your grades up, then that's the first fixed point. You have to keep your grades up. Then find a workplace that can accommodate that is your ambition. If your ambition really is to have extreme high grades because you want to get into your dream master's program, then find a workplace that can accommodate that. Find a workplace where you can apply your skills. Find a workplace where you're able to work in a way that can also accommodate that you want to study really hard. And I think every time I hear someone say that you have to be like in the right workplace, I think when you're an employer and you have look for the right skills for your workplace, of course you look where people have been by the title, but you can sense when you meet a young candidate whether they've actually gotten something from that workplace. And that can be a small business where they've been able to have a really large responsibility, or it can be with a giant firm that you know the name of beforehand. But you can definitely sense when people start working for you if they've actually gotten some valuable experiences from the student job. And that doesn't necessarily correlate with where it is, but also who's the leader, what tasks are you able to do. So I think find out what's most important to you, and then the other thing, find something that fits to that. So you don't feel like you're not doing well enough at school and you're not being the employee you want.
So you say you are able to find a workplace where you can balance it out.
Definitely, there are a lot of different workplaces when you're a student. There are places where you're able to work a lot of hours and be really ambitious, and there are places where you're able to work less hours, and that's completely fine. You can still be a success.
And I think it's very, very few workplaces that would say you cannot study.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you're a student worker, I mean, I don't think that really exists. Of course, some demands more of you.
Exactly.
Which is probably that can also be a good thing, right?
Yeah.
But they would never say, "Oh, I have this exam." No, you can't go.
No, you can't do that.
It's a student worker job. It's not a full-time job. So I doubt that would be the case anywhere.
Yeah. She also has another part of the dilemma, which is, should she find a workplace where it's safe, supportive, and manageable, or should she find something, even though it isn't prestigious or looks impressive on the CV? So I guess there's like two parts of it. What would you answer to that part, Cecilie?
I would always recommend finding a workplace that feels supportive for everyone, at least everyone who's human. I would always recommend finding a workplace that's supportive. I think it's, again, what looks good on a resume can sometimes be different from, are you actually able to use your experience to the things you want? And of course, I can definitely understand the dilemma. If you have something specific on your resume, you think that will bring you a better career in the future, and sometimes it will. But if you hire someone based on what companies they've been with before, you can really quickly notice whether or not they've just been a place that had a good title, or whether or not they've actually had the experience that makes them able to work well with you. Yeah. So I think that's also... and that's an important thing to keep in mind. You can be at a stage that doesn't seem really prestigious, but you get to do a lot of exciting things and you get a lot of valuable experience.
Yeah, Benjamin?
If I can add to that, I would definitely say stay in this safe environment, because chances are that's the best platform for you to develop your skills. That's the best platform for you to safely expose yourself to experiment with different professional disciplines, which is what you need to do in the years where you study. You need to find out what do I actually like. In order to find that out, you need to expose yourself to different things. And then there's also a key word, which you also touched upon. She says, how do I navigate the pressures, I think. And as you say, it's a matter of changing perspectives. So asking instead yourself, how do I navigate my ambitions? So pressures would be something external. And those pressures only exist in the extent that you allow them to exist. And I think we have this crow mentality at CBS, where people are obsessed with whatever shiny, fancy workplaces you have out there. And that's because you have a lot of ambitious people, but they don't have a goal to materialize this ambition. So these narratives that you create, that, it's only this and that workplace that's prestigious, then that's what you're heading towards without having yourself in it.
Yeah, André?
I think I wouldn't choose either safe or prestige. I mean, I don't think that makes sense. I think she's a student worker. You should choose where you learn the most. I mean, simply, you are a student, you need to learn as much as you can, as quick as possible before you go out to the labor market, right? So I think that's what she should look for. If you learn more in a safe environment, if that feels better for you. Prestige, what is that? I mean, you can be in a tier 1 consultancy and do slides all day, right?
Yeah.
So it doesn't.
Exactly.
Prestige really depends on the company. If you get a lot of responsibility in the company, it really matters a lot, right? So where do you learn the most? That's what I would go for.
Okay.
And are you comfortable in high performing all the time, which it sounds like you are?
Of course, right? If you are ambitious or not.
Do you want to put yourself in an environment where you're constantly high performing? Many people become exhausted from that. Other people thrive on it and get energy. But be honest to yourself.
Yeah, well, so I think, Mia, I mean, from the panel here, it's not either or. First of all, you can both have a nice student job and thrive in school, if you're able to manage it, of course. Find out what's important to you, and if school is what you will use most of your time on, maybe find a less harder student job, see what's out there, see if you can find a balance. When that's said, it's really important that it's a safe environment that you learn in, and everyone in the panel thinks that you should never, choose prestigious over a safe environment. It's definitely important that you feel safe to learn, so you can expose yourself to different things and what you like in work life. Find out what is you, because that's what you're supposed to do in a student job. And then André also rounds up the dilemma by saying that you should really find out where it is that you can learn the most. So if that's in a big consultancy firm or if that's in a small startup, that really doesn't matter, but find out where it is that you thrive. It's not about, the company that you're working for. It's much more about the task you're given and that you thrive and learn, because, work life is long. This is just the start of it. Thank you so much for your dilemma. Well, that was all of the dilemmas we had for you. Karriereklubben is always a place where you can send in your dilemmas. You can send them in anonymously. You can also send them to our mail, karriereklubben@gmail.com. And if you have any questions or are interested in talking about career, we are always eager to have the conversations. Thank you so much for answering this dilemma to our panel, and thanks for you for listening in, and thanks to you for being a part of our audience.
Du lyttede til Karriereklubben, en podcast produceret af André Thormann, Caroline Rossmeisl og Nima Tisdal. Du kan altid følge Karriereklubben inde på dine respektive sociale medier. Vi glæder os til at høre fra dig. Tak fordi du lyttede med.